Hello again, Year 10. Here's your lesson on survival in animals and plants. Your first slide has a do now. There's a bit of a clue where you might find your answers. Your knowledge organiser has been emailed to you at the start of lockdown. It will also be on Teams, and you should also have a paper copy at home with you. You will need to write out the sentences on here and find the word that goes with them. You will want to pause the video while you do that. Right, so here are your answers. Now, two of these are quite easy, two of them a bit trickier. Pulmonary vein. This is the only vein that carries oxygenated blood, which is why I included it. And xylem and phloem, we need to remind ourselves quite regularly. Now, finding words and writing definitions or having a definition and matching the word is actually a really good way to revise. And as you already know, you have got an assessment coming up next week. We've got 3 objectives in this lesson: knowing some of the ways in which plants and animals adapt to survive, understanding that cold climate is something that only animals adapt to survive in, and knowing that lack of water is something that both plants and animals have adaptations to survive. We're going to start off with plants, so here we go. You've got a YouTube video to watch here. It only runs a couple of minutes. The link for this video is also on Teams in case you can't get the embedded link to work. You will need to make some notes about this as you go along. You don't need to know the Latin name that's there underlined in red, but it's just always good practice to have this information available. Quite an amazing plant, and I do have one at home which, should we be back before the end of term, I will bring in to show to you. Right, requirements for plants. All plants need light, water and mineral ions for photosynthesis. They also need space in which to live and to spread out their leaves. In the deep ocean where there's no light and places that are really cold, plants will not grow. As plants are primary producers, they produce all the food that other animals are dependent on. There will not be a lot of animals in those environments. The key structures in plants are root hairs to take up water and mineral ions, and the stomata and leaves that allow the diffusion of gases both in and out of the plant, and also the loss of water vapour. If you need to revise root hairs, stomata in leaves, leaf structure, anything like that, there is a link here to BBC Bite Size, which again will also be on Teams for you. You will need to make notes of this. You need to know the examples that are in red. Don't just write those down, make the notes that go with them, please. So plants that live in hot, dry conditions will photosynthesize and respire quickly because they've got everything they need, but because of that, while they're respiring and photosynthesizing, the stomata will be open to allow the gases they need to come in and go out, and at the same time water vapour is lost. This means that they have an issue to cope with because they need water. So one thing they can do is to change their surface area. They can have broad leaves that act like a funnel to collect dew in the morning, send it towards the roots so that the plants get more water than they would do otherwise. They could have curled leaves to reduce water loss, and they can have leaves that have been reduced to spines. That also stops animals eating them, and animal biting into a plant will leave a surface exposed where more water can be lost. So it's undesirable for several reasons. And butcher's broom is a plant that has leaves, aren't really leaves at all. They're pieces of stem. That's important because stems have fewer stomata on them than leaves, just like the top of leaves don't have stomata at all. Unlike that's a practical we did earlier this year, I'm sure you remember, with the nail varnish on the leaves. Now, once they have made sure they reduce water loss, the other thing they need to do is collect as much water as possible from the environment. So they will have specially adapted root systems for this. They may be extensive, which means they spread over a wide area. They may go down a long way, or sometimes they will do both. The mesquite tree, shown in the picture here, has roots that can go down as far as 50 metres. into the soil. That is a very, very long route. Once they've collected this water, they may well need to store it. And cactuses are particularly good at this, as are plants that are called succulents. These often have quite fleshy looking stems. They don't have a hard trunk like trees in this country, which constrains the size. They have lots of spongy tissue which is able to suck up water and hold it like a reservoir, so that when it rains they can take full advantage. The saguaro cactus that's shown, it's the figures given in this presentation tell you it can take up 1 ton of water in one day after a heavy storm, and then it will only lose about 1 glass of water a day, so that will last for a very long time. Animals require food and mates. Food is to keep themselves going, mates are to keep the species going. They have 3 types of adaptation. You'll need to note these down, so make sure that you remember to pause the slide. So in a cold climate, animals need to reduce their surface area compared to their volume. They need to have a big inside to a relatively small outside. Think about cubes is a good way of comparing this. And so animals that live in the Arctic usually have a large, heavy body, seals, whales and polar bears, and a small surface area. They reduce the amount of areas that have got thin skin, like ears. They have an insulating layer of blubber below the skin. They have another layer of fur providing insulation above the skin. So it's a bit like having a double duvet. And this is all to stop energy being transferred out of the animal into the environment. They want to keep all the energy from their food to themselves. Camouflage, I'm sure you know about. What you may not know is that Arctic foxes, which we often see pictures of with white fur, actually change their colour with the seasons, because obviously the snow will disappear in the summer. So at that time they will go grey brown to have camouflage in the summer, and then they shed that fur, get fresh fur in the winter, which provides camouflage for the new weather. Finally, dry climates. Deserts are very challenging because they're dry, but they're also very hot in the day and very cold at night. I know the fact it was cold at night surprised some of you when we started this topic. They lack water, and so desert animals have adaptations. This is where the functional ones come in. Their kidneys are adapted so they can make very concentrated urine. Normally a mammal's body will not want very concentrated urine because it leaves a problem balancing salts. But animals such as camels have adapted to cope with this. They need very little water. Animals in deserts are usually active at the beginning and the end of the day when it's cooler, and they will either hide in burrows or under shade in the middle of the day. And there's a weird and wonderful desert animal shown in the video below. This is a sidewinder snake. It's from a BBC programme called Deadly Sixties. Some of you might have seen it before. This link, again, is embedded on Teams. Now, you need to be making notes from this lesson in your workbook on Teams. I will be having a look to see that they are there. If you have questions relating to how to revise, then please put them on the posts section in Teams so that everybody can see your question and my answer, or Mr. Heinrich's answer, and that will stop lots of people asking the same question. And hopefully that's all you need from me, but you know where to get to me. Stay safe, work hard, don't panic about your assessments next week, and hopefully see you very soon.